My name is Wakonyo. I have been in the corporate, I've been a lawyer for the last 34 years. When I counted the other day, I was so shocked. I said, God, how have I been alive for so long? But anyway, I've been a lawyer for 34 years. The first 10 years, I was in practice, going to court and everything. I was in the power sector for 4 years. And then after that, I was in banking for 20 years. So that's where I retired from. I really have to clarify what retirement is. So on the 20th of February 2024, I took a retirement 2 years before 60, which means I'm going to be 60 next year. And I keep telling people that I retired from the corporate world. I retired from actively being a lawyer. But you see, there's nothing like you retire of. That's the end of it. So now a friend of mine taught me how to spell retirement differently. Now I spell it RE-TYRES, meaning all I've done is change the wheels of my destiny. So what I did for 34 years, how I served for 34 years has shifted. But I have not retired to say that I'm going to now go and plant potatoes. Because, you always have to also realize that there's some people who can go to farming. I am a terrible farmer. Even a plant here in my house, I'll kill it. So now if you tell me to go and plant capsicum, that's it. But learning, as I approached 58, I was very clear that I was tired of law the way I knew it. I was tired of those titles in the corporate space. You're in the banking, you're called street, this. I was so tired. And I said, what does that mean for me? I went back to school. To be certified as a coach, as a mediator, as a governance auditor. And in some of those classes, there were people Carol's age. There were people my children's age. And I would sit there thinking, hey, they must be looking and thinking, this one, ni shule alishindwa kwenda akiwa mdogo. But I realized I wanted to shift to something else. So I retired from one season of life. I'm living the dream that I wanted. I am in charge of my time. I rest. Like what I do in the evenings. I decided to get an apartment where I could see outside because I kept saying I'm the person, I like grass and things like that. But as I have a project going on, and when that project ends, then I can move into that place where I have grass and everything. But in the meantime, I wanted to be able to watch the sun go down and watch it get dark. I needed to be able to have that excitement. I needed to be able to get up and decide this week I want to do nothing. I want to go to Malindi. And 4 days in Malindi. I can make that decision and I don't have to go and ask, I say it carefully, the CEO and the board. I would have to ask the chairman, I need to be away for 4 days. No, it's not a good time. I became the person that I needed to be to rest. And I feel like this is, and then I can do the things I'm doing on social media, which I started just recently, but enjoying it. I feel like in fact, the retirement season has surpassed my expectation. I remember when I said I was leaving, the board were like, excuse me, because now I sit on the board, they were like, no, you can't. And I remember hearing myself saying that my season has come to an end. And what had happened the journey before that is I felt like I was rediscovering myself. When I went back to school, I was still working. Now I'm the head of legal in a bank, but my work half the year is going around and mentoring the branch managers, the people who are coming from management into senior management. I was already shifting. There were already the signs. I'm so tired of this. I'm so tired of being in the boardroom every day. I'm so tired. Now I wanted to train the directors. So there's an institute called Institute of Certified Secretaries, who I work for, who I'm part of because of being a certified secretary. I started training boards before I retired. And I thought, hang on, this is what I like to do. I don't want to sit here as a legal governance person. I want to be able to train directors how to be their best. Because there are directors who get onto boards and you're so shocked, they have no idea. That's what I wanted to do. So why did I retire 2 years early? The season had come to an end and I felt like there was so much more I could give elsewhere. My greatest passion in life is to build people and watch people grow. So I'm looking at people in my office and I'm thinking, this one is living half her potential. What's going on, Where did that come from? An intern in the office 10 years ago walked into my office. And she said to me, as she was sent to give me files. You know how she's been sent by another department, take files to Mrs. Igeria. She brought them to me. And then when she was leaving, she said, she couldn't help us. She said, I really want to be like you when I grow up. And I looked at her and I was like, what? And in my head, I was thinking, child, you don't want to be like me. I'm going through a divorce. I'm going through. I'm thinking, why would this girl want to be like me? And it hurt me so much. And then I asked her, what about me do you want to be like? And she said, you're so bubbly, you're so intelligent, you understand things, da 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 da. And I remembered it gave me an avenue to ask her about herself and to help her recognize that in this life we show up, regardless of how tough it is. She then taught me that my circumstances didn't define who I was. My circumstances didn't mean that because after 27 years you have to leave a marriage, because it didn't define who I was. And that was what was bothering me most at that season. And recognizing, regardless of what life throws at you, you can actually find a space and thrive in it. And that's where Waki's space came from.
Yeah.
An intern telling me, I want to be like you, and wondering, why would you want to be like you? Don't know my story. But she started something for me. Yeah. You probably have seen from my posts that I am a mother of 2 young adults, and we lost my son in March this year.
Sorry.
That was another transition, which that's another story of its own, because you know how you feel like I took 1 year, the 1 year that I had retired, I spent most time with him, which for me is just God saying, you know what, you took your retirement at a year early because you needed to spend time with Paul for that year. So also understanding my seasons of life, and then now and then again, so I'm in retirement. I've left retirement. It's in the public domain that I also went through a divorce. So I remember telling someone how loss is not just one thing. You can lose the marriage you know for 27 years, then lose the corporate space that you have known for 34 years, and then lose a child. And all these things started making me realize that this is the person I am. And I have to understand these seasons. And so that's the person who I am. So I have Wams, my daughter, and that's why you can see she looks after me like now it's almost like, you know.
Yeah.
And what that did for me is I used to live in a huge space. You know, the house we built for many years.
Yes.
Divorced, moved into a smaller space.
Yeah.
And then when I retired, moved into a much smaller space, because I told my kids, I told them, because I was living in a very huge place with my kids, and I told them, you're adults, I am now in retirement, and I moved into this space so that now everything else becomes an asset that's working for you, but you live into a smaller space. How do you accept the change in those seasons? So that has been part of what I've been doing, and also part of what I've been doing also on social media. I mean, being social media, if you had told me this several years ago, I'd have told you it's a lie. So what would happen would be my kids, like when I was living with my kids, I'm a very good cook. Let me tell you, hands down. I don't know if you've tasted better cooking than mine. So my kids' friends would always come for food. In fact, my house was synonymous with food. So like when my daughter was at Kenya School of Law, when they were that career that is very hectic, her study group decided they would be doing their study group, whatever, in my house. Because they knew what? Every time you go there, there'll be different kinds of chicken. I used to cooking up storms. So my daughter one day said that, Mom, every time my friends come here, you always say things to them that really encourage them. Why don't you put them down on social media? So I remember that social media, so I tell who on social media. She says, no, you just put your phone, make a clip, and I'm like, I talk to my phone. I'm like, I don't do those ones, not me. And she says, why don't you just try it? So we agreed. So she set up an account, which I did nothing with for almost a year. Then after a year, she was like, you know what, Mom, we really need to do something. So I'd sit there, I talk at my phone and feel completely foolish as I talk to my phone. And then I started doing that. Then, okay, I have to tell now. So, when we reach our age, we can say these things.
Yes.
I didn't know there were things like DMs that people are going to send me messages. I had no clue. All I knew is I take my phone, talk, and then my daughter has uploaded a clip and we move on. So one day she took my phone and she goes, Mom, why aren't you reading your DMs? I asked her, what are DMs?
Yeah.
She's direct message. I said, who has sent me messages? And then I started reading. And I think what hit me the hardest was that there were so many people with so many issues. And I post something and talk about all you need to do today is just show up. Show up and let God be the one to guide you. Then people will be saying, I can't show up anymore. I'm giving up. And I'm like, hey. What's working on anyhow? Who have got all these issues, So it bothered me so much. So I got a therapist at Yomo Medical Center. I said, this is what's happening. And he gave me a hotline number and told me, if you see, because I know I'm a coach, but I'm not a therapist, and you have to be very clear. You don't respond to someone and tell them what you need to go is go outside and run around and you feel, So he said, what you do is when somebody sends you a message like that, give them this number. So that's what I would do. I'd say, please close this number, and then most people wouldn't follow up. Then my daughter would tell me, one day, I will never forget, one day she called me, she looked at my phone, she says, Mommy, Instagram, you have more than 8, that was some time back, you have more than 8,000 followers. And I asked her, who are those people who are following me? And they're following me where? Of course, I didn't have the concept of you have followers, you have DMs and whatever. For me, I was just sitting down and doing something on whatever. And then one day I sent her and I'm walking up the stairs. And then a lady's coming towards me. I am ladies like you. She came and she just hugged me. And I'm like, then she says, Waki Space, thank you so much. And I'm thinking, then she says, yeah, I wrote to you. You gave me a number. I called it and I got help. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, what else? And I told my daughter, if for one person who can get help because I'm on social media, bring that social media.
Yes.
Yeah. One of the things I've been doing in the last 1 year is helping people build their personal brand. And your personal brand is really what you're about. And your personal brand must reflect on your social media platform. So a lot of times when people ask me, what is your message on your social media platform? And I say it goes back to my brand. And I tell people I'm a kite flyer. I fly kites. The kites are all the people I interact with on a day-to-day basis, helping them live their best authentic life. So everything I post has to be related to that. It has to be able to motivate somebody. The last 3 months, I started a thing which I'm calling How I Grieve, and talking about, how my grief can turn into a level of celebration when I remember my son. And a lot of times I'll post something, I finish and I cry after that because you're grieving.
Yes.
But what would come back from messages are other women who've lost their sons and who have felt stuck. There's one lady who sent me a message and she told me, thank you for letting me know how you're grieving because you're helping me. And I'm like, wow, if my grief is going to help somebody else, the message has to be able to help. And then maybe help even the younger people who misuse social media, carefully said, sit back and realize it's not about your followers, it's about your value. It's not about how many people see you online, it's about how many people you impact online. So for me, it has to be a building platform. I put the phone here or the iPad here, I clear, finish, and then I put online. I'm like, girl, there's no editing there.
Oh.
And then the good ones where I have music, I'm glad you can put music. So if it's a still picture,
Yes.
or if the pictures are putting together on InShot, and hey, that's my editing.
Yeah.
But what happens is the days where I'll have some motivation to do like a clip, like a series. Like one time, I did a series and it was like just 5 clips, and I shot them all on the same day. Just changed the clothes, but I think it was exciting because it was a season I posted every single day. But usually, a lot of times, it would be one of the things I do when I'm exercising in the morning. I do a 30-minute walk. And every morning when I'm doing the 30-minute walk, either on the treadmill or out there, I listen to a leadership podcast or to a message. And usually I'll get something out of that. So what is it I've learned and how can I give it to people to learn? So a lot of the time during the day, and then when I'm going through the day, everything, everywhere you go, you learn a lesson. I can be at the junction and something happened and I learn a lesson. And on my phone, I have on my notes, I have a thing called thoughts. I write it down. All those thoughts become clips. So in one day, I'll have 10 thoughts. Those are 10 clips just there. And it can be out of anything. So I realize that every single day there are things that are becoming, that become a lesson. And now I call them life lessons in short blasts. Like once I was cutting onions, and I was crying as I was cutting the onions. And for me, it was a life lesson. I kept thinking that everything you do in life has a life lesson. So every time I would post, I'd be asking myself, what is a life lesson? What do I want someone to pick out of this? And that's now how I would post. Yes. So I sit here, put the light there, and then I look into my screen and I said, hi, this is Waki Space. And I just,
using your laptop,
this or my iPad or my phone, whichever. But imagine that's fine. So now this is the video. Yes. And then I put it here because I realized that when I do this and then I put that light on, it's so much easier to be able to see. And then I can see myself properly. Yeah. And then I say, hi, this is Waki Space. Talking about loneliness, and how people my age end up feeling very lonely. And I was describing it. And then I just sat down and I started talking about it. And the amount of people who responded and said, I'm not even your age yet, I feel so lonely. Da, da, da. And I realized that it's like, it's a plague. People are suffering out there. And so what happens when you're lonely? What are the things you need to be able to tell yourself and remind yourself? So when I'm speaking, I always like speak from my heart. And that's easier. Because if I speak from a script like I've written, I feel like it's rehearsed. It has to be what I'm thinking at that point.
Yeah.
Hi, welcome to Waki Space. Today, I want to talk about understanding the place of your legacy. Does your legacy begin when you become older? No. It begins the day you begin to understand why you are here. The reason I want to talk about it is because so many people are waiting for that big break. The break is now. This is it. Begin to speak about it today. Have a thoughtful one.